Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
Is it possible the people on your payroll don't care about what you care about? It's not only possible, it's likely unless you have a strategy to do something about it. Engagement is a really big deal. Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And we've been talking about building a high-performance organization. And whether you're the top of your organization or somewhere in the middle, but you're a leader, you're here listening today, you're trying to get your organization to the level you want it to go to. We think that this engagement thing is a big deal. And around the world, we're at an all-time low when it comes to engagement. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, I want to share some stats on that, but I want to add to something you just said. Whether you're a senior leader, mid-level leader, or a frontline leader, engagement matters. You know, we're going to talk, I think, tomorrow about execution. We've discovered that this is the last hurdle, that if you really want to execute at elite levels consistently over time, it hinges on how much people care.
Yeah.
And the latest research that I've seen is from Marcus Buckingham, formerly with Gallup. He's with ADP now. And they just finished a study. I want to say there were 19 countries.
Yeah, it was a global study.
Global study. And they found that only 15% of workers are fully engaged at work. Just imagine. That means organizations all over the planet are trying to deliver for their customers with 85% of the people who really don't care.
It's just unthinkable that we would try
It's
to
hard
do.
enough when people do care.
Well, when they do care, it really is
I
hard.
can't even imagine leading a team when 85% of the people are kind of going, whatever.
When I was a kid, we and it's been a long time ago, a buddy of mine, he's a couple years older. He's going to go get our first job, right? I mean, he's going to be the first guy to go get a job, and living up in North Georgia and a lot of carpet mills and everything. He's going to go work in this mill. And the guy who owned the mill actually did his interview, and you know, he's interviewing my friend to work there. And I'll never forget this. My friend comes back and he says he ended up getting a job, which was great, and he still was in the industry for decades. But he said the guy asked him a question at the beginning, and I thought it was this guy is our kind of leader when we think about this conversation. He asked him, he said, "Do you care about what we're doing?" And my friend was like, "Yeah, I care." And he said, he looked at me and he said, "Do you really care?" And he said, let me tell you something. He said, I can pay you. I can hire you, and I can actually pay you $1 more an hour than I'm going to pay you. He said, but I can't pay you to care. He said, you either have to care or not. Well, the truth is you can't pay somebody to care, but there are some things you can do to increase the level of care we've discovered with some of the work we've done. And I want to unpack that a little bit just today. We just got a couple minutes here, but what are some things as you think about this idea of care? We have a little acronym, the word care. Let's take that and let's unpack that for a second, because I think that can help make it sticky for anybody out there that says, I know we have an engagement problem, but I'd like to do something about that as I think about building an organization. Remember, we're trying to be more strategic here, trying to play chess, not just wing it and hope they care. I mean, that's not right. Hope is not a strategy for care. So
hope is not a strategy for anything.
It's not. Hope's a good thing, but it's not a strategy for building an organization. That's right. So
it is not.
So let's talk about our care acronym.
Yeah. So I think to help people ground this in their spirit, care begets care. If you'll do these 4 things, it's just a strategy, and there are others that we can and will talk about in the future. But if you'll do these 4 things, it will help the people on your team care more. And when they care more, all kind of good things happen. So the first is connection. Can you create a connection with your people? And again, any number of strategies and tactics to do that. But we've got a guy that we know, Howard Behar, that was the former, I guess he was the president.
He's the president of Starbucks.
Of Starbucks
International,
for many years, helped them grow globally. And he said, you got to have real conversations with people. And are you having real conversations with people? And you can come up with your own way to connect with people, but are you viewing the people on your team as people, as human beings, as opposed to just a means of getting work done?
Yeah.
So connection. really, really matters.
Yeah, and think about connection. An example, and Howard actually told us this: is you can have all the slogans you want and put it on the break room wall, but when you take an employee and you go stand by the slogan and you talk about what does this look like when it shows up? Where's the gap here? What is, what's concerning? So connection to your employees, but also connecting them to the vision. I mean, the vision of what you're trying to do, connecting them to each other. We found over and over, when people are connected, they care more. The engagement level goes up, as opposed to if they're not connected. If they're disconnected, engagement's going to wane.
And we talked a few episodes back about community. That's another strategy.
It is.
Which fuels connection.
Yeah, that's good.
It creates connection. So
that's
huge.
So that's the C, connection. So if you're listening and you feel like, man, my engagement feels like it's low, maybe my own personal engagement's low, you might need to reconnect to the vision, but reconnect to your people. Your engagement will go up. But when you begin to connect people to each other, to the customers, to the vision, to what you're doing, their engagement goes up. So do you have a little work to do? If so, take that step. So what's the A, Mark?
Affirmation.
Okay.
Affirmation. And here's a little nuance for you. Affirmation and recognition are different. Recognition is important, but affirmation is personal. If you recognize someone in a fashion that is not congruent with the way they receive affirmation, it'll be a swing and a miss. If you put somebody on stage to recognize them and they'd much rather had a handwritten note from you, you recognize them, but you didn't affirm them. And when you affirm people, their engagement goes up. So you got to figure out what is the language that will connect best with them. And a quick exercise, if you want to try this, fascinating. Start meeting with people on your team individually and ask them to share with you the best recognition they ever received. And the answers they give you will give you insight as to what they find to be most affirming. And the answers are going to be all over the board. And sometimes it's a trophy, and sometimes it's a plaque, and sometimes it's a note, and sometimes it's a check, and sometimes it's a day off. Sometimes it's an opportunity to go on stage. But people are going to be affirmed differently.
I think the best leaders become fluent in the affirmation language of their people.
They sure do.
It's just huge. And so I would say to everybody listening, your people need to be validated more than they need to be tolerated. I think so many times we just have to work with these people, but if we validate them, if we see them, if we listen to them, and we know who does need to be on stage with a pat on the back and who does need the heartfelt note and who does need the day off, whatever. I mean, I like your examples there. I think we're going to be much more likely to affirm them in the language they speak, and they probably don't speak the language that you speak, right? What is affirming to you might not be to me, and
Exactly.
So we need to understand that as teammates. That's good. Okay, so the R. What's the R?
Responsibility. People respond to responsibility, real responsibility, and this is not the same as, hey, you need to go do this and you need to go do that. And there are times when leaders are going to say, you need to do this and you need to do that. But when you give people a challenge, you give them a problem to solve. When you give them the accountability and the authority that goes with the situation.
Real responsibility.
Real responsibility. Think about a time in your life when somebody said, hey, I need you to own this.
Yeah.
I need you to figure this out.
Yeah.
I'm guessing your engagement went up.
Your engagement. I think sometimes we're afraid if we give them more, they're going to pull back. The opposite. The research shows that when we give them more and it's real responsibility. So many times, if I'm good at doing something, I think it's just easier for me to go ahead and do it. That's actually not true. Go back to what we talked about with developing more leaders. If we're not careful, we'll just be doing everybody else's job, and it's not your job to do their job. It's your job to develop the people around you. One of the best things you can do is give them real responsibility, and their engagement actually goes up when you give them that responsibility. So that's a huge opportunity there to increase engagement. All right, there's one more, the E.
The fourth is the environment that you create. And it feels a little bit like a catch-all, but there's a lot in the environment. Do they have the resources? Do they have the skills? Do they have the sufficient staff to do the things that you've asked them to do? What is the context that you've created? And are there impediments that you can eliminate that will systematically raise engagement?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Do they know their boundaries? I mean, all that. When you give them responsibility.
There's a long list there.
Yeah. And by the way, we want to make sure the environment includes connection, affirmation, and responsibility.
Exactly.
I mean, all those things
Exactly.
It is a little bit of a catch-all, but it might be the most important. It's the deal. It's the whole thing.
Yeah. And we wrote about that in a book called Win the Heart. And there's a phrase in there that I've continued to encourage leaders with over the years. It's no hired hands. You really don't want people checking their brain at the door, just doing what they're told, when they're told, how they're told. But you want to find a way to win the heart.
Yeah, there's so many times I think back in the past where you just, for me, I've just shown up. But when a leader has won my heart, you run through a wall for those people. You give everything. And so as you look at your organization, do you have people that care? Are they standing with you? Are they with you? Might be the way to think about that. I think if we don't give this some focus and we leave this to chance, it's not likely that they're going to care about what you care about.
We know what happens when you leave it to chance.
Yeah.
85% of them don't care.
Don't care. And you said something a couple of days ago I thought was really good. And let's just land it here. You were talking about the tug of war. If you win the hearts of your people, they'll want to be on the same side of the rope with you. But if you don't, it's just it's just that drift. And again, nothing's going to drift to greatness. It's going to be led there. So I think we have a huge chance here to connect with our people, to connect them to what's going on, to affirm them in the way they need to be affirmed, to give them real responsibility, and then to create an environment where people really do care about what the leader cares about. When that happens, you talk about competitive advantage with culture. Engagement might be,
it's the last hurdle.
It's the last hurdle,
execution.
and it's going to position us to plant the flag, which is what we'll talk about tomorrow. So remember, the best leaders lead every day. I hope you'll join us tomorrow as we talk about excelling at execution.